What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Brain Waves. We gotta break the news. We gotta break the news. We gotta break the news. I'm working on the thumbnail because apparently there's some type of issue when I was trying to upload the thumbnail. So give me 1 second. All right. We're gonna see this time if it actually updates because the thumbnail was supposed to update. But I'd like to welcome you all to my show. What we're here to talk about is the No Kings protest. We're going to ask the question, where did this get them? That's what we're going to ask. Okay. The thumbnail should be updated now. I don't know what was going on before. You know, there's been a lot of stuff going on. The internet outages, the Amazon, AT&T, Roblox, so many different company outages. So we got the thumbnail updated, but we're going to talk about this. And I'd like to welcome you all to my show. When you come into the building, make sure you go ahead and you kindly double tap the screen. And for those of you that are new, I kindly ask that you subscribe. So what we're going to do first is we're going to report the news. My apologies if anything is not running the way it should. Again, y'all understand there's been a lot of internet issues, okay? But no, nonetheless, we're going to report on this particular news. So one of the things I want to talk about is just that. We're going to talk about one of the things. We're going to take a look here at the No Kings protest. Let's take a look at this. Let's turn the music down. And again, we're going to see, where did this get them? But anyway, let's go.
Let's turn now to the No Kings demonstrations around the country. Streets were filled with peaceful demonstrators protesting the Trump administration's policies. Our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, is here with the latest for us. Good morning to you, Rachel.
Robin, good morning to you. And this is shaping up to be the largest display of defiance and opposition to President Trump since he took office again. Organizers say nearly 7 million people took to the streets for the No Kings protests to protest what they call an abuse of power by President Trump. The demonstrations happening in more than 2,000 cities and towns, 200,000 people showing up in the president's own backyard in Washington, D.C. The protesters say they were fueled by the president's sweeping cuts to the federal government, his crackdown on immigration, and his decision to send the National Guard into Democratic states. The president responded by mocking the rallies on social media, calling it a joke. But these were massive crowds that turned out to send the president a message. This morning, it is being described as one of the largest single-day protests in U.S. history.
Yeah, that's very peaceful. And also, in other news, we know that former Congressman George Santos, he is now free after serving only a short amount of time with the president commuting his sentence.
Yeah, he is a free man this morning. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. In the end, he served just about 3 months. The president making this decision to commute the sentence of George Santos, who you may remember left Congress in disgrace. He was expelled. He was found lying about everything from his education to his background. He said that his grandparents survived the Holocaust. That was not true. He said that his mother was killed in the 9/11 September 11th attacks. That was not true either. And it wasn't just lying. He was convicted of wire fraud, identity theft. A congressional investigation found that he even used campaign funds on Botox, designer goods. The president commuting his sentence, when he announced this on social media, he provided some sort of reasoning for this, saying at least Santos had the courage, conviction, and intelligence to always vote Republican.
And also the money that he was supposed to pay, he no longer has to.
To the victims, right now, he does not have to pay any of that back.
All right.
I'm sure that's definitely going to piss off a lot of people on the left, okay? But I want to kind of get these things out here. I want to show you what's been going on. We're going to talk about this. I want to show you we're going to look here from Austin, Texas, okay? Give me 1 second here. Let's take a look at this. This is what happened in Austin, Texas.
Yesterday, protesters across the country took part in No Kings rallies, speaking out against what they call authoritarian actions on the part of President Donald Trump. Fox 7 Austin's Brianna Carroll explains.
Millions of demonstrators took to the streets nationwide this weekend to participate in No Kings rallies in protest of the Trump administration. And while Republican leaders referred to the marches as Hate America rallies and warned of violence, the protests remained largely peaceful and upbeat. In Austin, thousands of people filled the streets bearing signs reading things like "America was built by immigrants" and "The only good orange monarch is a butterfly." Ahead of Saturday's event, Governor Greg Abbott deployed the National Guard to the city for what he called an Antifa-linked demonstration. This comes after President Trump designated Antifa, short for anti-fascist, as a domestic terrorist organization last month. No arrests were reported in Austin per a post published on X by APD thanking the community for keeping the rally peaceful. Protesters marched on Saturday for a variety of reasons, including opposition to the Trump administration's immigration policies, cuts to health care, and other federal programs, as well as the ongoing government shutdown. Many demonstrators say they chose to participate because they love their country.
Now, I want to show you who is actually the predominant face out here. When you see the predominant face out here with the No Kings protests, predominantly you see white people out there. It doesn't mean there isn't a mixture out there. I'm pretty sure there's a mixture, but I want you to see who's out there. So I want, when we have this conversation, for you all to understand who is potentially involved in this particular conversation. But anyway, let's continue.
Trey.
I am not here as any kind of hate America person. I love my country. My grandfathers fought for this country. My brother died for this country. I'm here because I want to give them a voice as well. We're here to fight for freedom and for representation. That's the most American thing you can do.
In Austin, U.S. Representatives Lloyd Doggett and Greg Casar spoke to attendees. Other Democratic lawmakers made similar appearances at rallies across the country, including Governor J.B. Pritzker in Chicago and Senator Bernie Sanders, who spoke to demonstrators in D.C. More than 2,000 No Kings marches took place in cities big and small on Saturday, with the majority of protests remaining peaceful and even joyful at times, with attendees dressed in costumes poking fun at the way Republican leaders characterized the rallies.
It feels good to see the people out in the streets.
NYPD said no arrests were made in the New York City protests, which saw over 100,000 attendees across all 5 boroughs. The same goes for Seattle, where no arrests were reported despite recent clashes between the community and federal immigration and customs enforcement officers. Even Georgia, a red state that voted for Trump in 2024, saw more than 30 protests statewide.
And I'm in Georgia, so I knew about the protests here in Georgia while we're speaking about it. But anyway, let's continue.
What's happening in our country is not okay. It's important for us to use the rights that we still have to bring our voices together.
A few events did become disorderly on Saturday, with several people arrested in Denver after failing to follow officer orders to disperse. Separate protests outside ICE facilities on Saturday also led to arrests in Portland, where at least 3 people were taken into custody following the deployment of tear gas, as well as outside a facility in Broadview, Illinois, where at least 4 people were detained. Those protests were unrelated to the primary No Kings rallies in the cities. Some Republican lawmakers have accused Democrats of prolonging the government shutdown now in its 19th day because of these planned protests, and say they hope now that this weekend's No Kings rallies are over, lawmakers will be able to agree on a deal to get the government back open. Reporting in studio.
Okay, so what we got to talk about really quickly is that the goal of the No Kings protests seems to be that they were hoping that by showing up in the streets with the numbers, that this will put pressure on lawmakers to open the government. Okay. But I want to ask you all this here. Do you believe that this is where it got them? Like, when we're sitting down today, has there been any conversation about the so-called government having pressure or being open? I want to talk about several different things as it relates to this protest, including we're going to look at the response from the White House and everything that's going on. I want to talk about something first, okay? Let's take a look at this real quick, all right? And I want you to listen to what's going on here.
As well. Joining us now is Daily Signal senior editor Tyler O'Neill. And Tyler, the No Kings protests. Look, I actually was in the city, New York City. I saw some of them. Some of it is a joke. A lot of them didn't really seem to know what they were doing or talking about, a lot of the protesters. But here's what isn't a joke. The hatred of President Trump from the folks on the left and from the Democratic Party in general is still strong enough that they can get a lot of people to show up. Now, a lot of them, it was funny. I was on a subway with some of them on the way. They weren't saying it. People, it's like they were going to a job. So they're kind of like assigned to do it. But again, that's not a joke. And so they need to be considered.
Did you hear what was just said? Let me run this back. Y'all might have missed this. Listen to what was said.
Subway with some of them on the way. They weren't saying it. People, it's like they were going to a job. So they're kind of like going to a job. They were going to a job. They were going to a job. They were going to a job.
And this is what I want to bring up. A lot of the people that were protesting were actually like going to a job. Do y'all realize that I received a text message from somebody? I don't know, some random spam text or whatever asking me if I was going to take part in the No Kings. So they were sending out texts, they were sending out messages all over the place, and I'm pretty sure they treated it like it was a job. And as a lot of people said in the comment section, we've seen a lot of elderly out there. When you look at the footage, you do see a lot of elderly individuals out there that was protesting. So a lot of those people might have been in a position to go out and protest, whereas say younger individuals, they got jobs to hold down. You see what I'm saying? They got mouths to feed, whether it was themselves, they got a husband, they got a wife, they got kids, boyfriend, girlfriend, mama, daddy, sister, brother. So again, it doesn't mean that younger people aren't out protesting, but when we look at the faces of the people protesting, a lot of them were elderly. So you got to stop and think, why is it that this No Kings protest, is this the voice of the elderly, or is this actually the voice of everyone? There's a lot of questions that we got to ask, but again, we're asking, where did this get them? And we're going to get to it in a minute. But anyway, let's continue. So and for everybody coming into the building, thank you so much for being here. My platform is nothing without you wonderful people. Whether you're for the protests, against the protests. So thank you for coming in. Thank you for sharing your comments. I truly do appreciate you. If you can, just double tap the screen, get the likes up. And if you haven't subscribed, I kindly ask that you do so. Welcome to my show. We talk about these tough things. We present these particular perspectives, and we're going to get into it. So again, whether you're for or you're against, I welcome you here to my show. Thank you for coming through. And like I said, we're about to get it in. So let's go.
Well, they're kind of like assigned to do it. But again, that's not a joke. And so they need to be considered by Republicans this year and next year in these elections coming up. Just hating on Trump is enough to get people to come out and show up. It's sad because I don't think these people actually understand what they're standing for. They didn't seem to be coherent. But Tyler, you know, the Republicans can't laugh this off completely.
Yeah, I think these protests were very large. What we've seen is the left is in almost a terrified mode at this point, because right now what's happening in Virginia with the J. Jones texts and the way that that's drawing attention to the violence on the left, they're starting to really get scared about losing that race. And we saw them pull out none other than Barack Obama. You know, they're really pulling out the stops, trying to get Abigail Spanberger across the finish line.
Let me pause this real quick. I know people are saying that there's a lot of young individuals, but I'm sorry. When you look at the footage and you look at the people that showed up, the majority of people, just like you see in this picture, are elderly. Like the majority of the people are seniors, or they're definitely older individuals. It's not a No Kings protest full of young individuals. I'm just saying, this is the footage that we see. If we compare all the shots, all the camera angles, the predominant age group of individuals that went out to protest are seniors. So you got to stop and think. Seniors have a different mindset from perhaps maybe even younger individuals. Now, I mean, again, you can't say this for every person, but I'm just making some generalizations here, right? They have a different set of concerns than perhaps maybe someone younger would have. But anyway, let's continue.
so they can eke out a win despite what's happening. And of course, we saw a lot of energy at those No Kings protests, but we also saw some really disturbing signs. One of my colleagues went and interviewed people at the protest in DC, and one of the ladies that she interviewed expressed essentially joy that Charlie Kirk had been assassinated, comparing Charlie Kirk had been assassinated. Essentially joy that Charlie Kirk had been assassinated.
Now, there's a lot of people on the left. Obviously, they don't like Charlie Kirk. Why? Because Charlie Kirk is on the right. He's conservative. He was down with Trump, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there are people that are glad that Charlie Kirk got assassinated. And I'm sorry, man. Like, regardless of who you are or who you rock with, anybody that's happy that someone got assassinated, that a father has now left children behind because of assassination, a wife is now widowed, all of that, regardless whether you agree with the person or not. Like, I'm sorry, that's like anti-American, in my opinion. Like, nobody should be happy of anybody getting assassinated like that. Like, assassination is a whole nother level. It's one thing if you say, hey, they did something, I don't agree with them, and they had to suffer they needed to be punished for what they said or did or something. Whole different conversation. But to be cheering and be happy for somebody that's assassinated, like, this is crazy, man. Assassinated, murdered, whatever, unalive. The man got popped in the neck. Very violent in front of everybody. Like, that's nothing to be celebrating. We shouldn't celebrate that, period. But hey, I'm not the one out here celebrating this. This is the group of people, because obviously everybody that's in support of No Kings, obviously they're not a Republican. Okay, they're not on the right. They're not conservative, because they're anti-Trump for the most part. For the most part. I'm sure there's probably some exceptions there. There's some independents. I don't want to get all complicated with it, but we're pretty sure the majority of people are on the left. Anyway, let's go.
Comparing Charlie Kirk to Adolf Hitler, saying, I'm very glad that Hitler is dead. And this sort of rhetoric continues to come up over and over again from different parts of the left. Now, we're not hearing a lot of elected officials say that, but we did hear from Jay Jones, these horrible texts where he's defending political violence as a means of convincing those evil Republicans to no longer hold the positions that they hold. So we have to be careful here. We're not just seeing, most of the protesters over the weekend were peaceful and were expressing their opinions, but this is also part of the left's infrastructure pushing to get more people out. I mean, as I covered, the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers, the largest teachers unions in the country, were promoting these protests. And I heard claims that I have not yet been able to verify that these unions were funding the protests. And I find that very easy to believe, given how many leftist activist things the NEA and the AFT have funded. They're big funders.
And this is what people got to understand. These protests, these protests don't just come about out of thin air. There's money, there's power, and there's resources behind a protest of this magnitude. So you got to really stop and think, who's pushing this? Like, ultimately, who's funding this? Who's behind it? And what agenda do they have? I'm just saying. These protests, this No Kings protest is not a protest that just materialized out of thin air and everybody just came out on their own accord. A lot of them were funded to do this. So you got to think, what is the objective and where did this get them? Okay. Now I want to shift gears, because what I want to show you is what the White House actually has to say, and what Trump actually warned about this. So let's look at what President Trump had to say about this. Let's go to that. All right. So we switching gears here. Let me go ahead and get this on the screen for y'all. Oh, what happened to the thing? Hold on, y'all. Y'all know it. Like I said, with the complications of the internet, let's go ahead and look at this. And let me make this clear. A lot of people on the left are going to be pissed off right now with me bringing this up. You do not have organized protests that aren't funded somehow. The mere size and volume of these protests had to be organized somehow. This isn't just a bunch of random people on the internet saying, hey, you want to come out? Hey, you want to come out? Somebody's placing these calls. Somebody's organizing on social media. Someone's organizing the location, determining all of this. That is funded. Someone is paying someone to take the time to go out and do that. So you got to stop and think. I know a lot of people on the left are pissed off right now. They don't like the fact that I'm bringing this up. But someone is funding this. And what is their objective? What is their goal? Again, where did this get them? That's what we're asking. When you have a lot of the protests, whether they are, y'all got to understand, when I say paid, you got some people that's not thinking. You got some people that's saying, hey, they actually paid that person to come out and show up. Y'all missing the point here. Someone had to sit there and finance the organization of the communication to even let people know where to show up, what time to show up, how to get out. This wasn't just mere funded, or let me take this back. This wasn't just mere spread by word of mouth. And people say, hey, you showing up to this city, you showing up to Austin, you showing up to New York, you showing up to Atlanta, you coming out here. This was organized. Someone had to promote this. Someone had to put this out. There are organizations that are in cahoots with this, that are behind this. So these are the questions that we're bringing up and we're bringing out. What are their goals? Why are they there? What do they hope to accomplish? What do they believe this accomplished? But anyway, let's get to this because we're going to answer those questions in a little bit later.
While Democrats celebrated the No Kings Day protests this weekend, they may not be getting the same enthusiasm from young voters. A focus group of young voters in the key swing state of Pennsylvania shows.
And let me say this again. Someone spent the money to get this going on social media, to organize it, to set it up on where people are going to meet. I'm tired of people that are lacking intelligence in the chat saying like as if this just came out of nowhere and people just randomly decided to show up in the same spot at the same time across the entire nation. Y'all, listen, y'all are not making any sense. Anytime, any event, anything that is organized to that magnitude, it takes money, it takes resources. It's not coming out of thin air. It's not just a bunch of random people chatting on social media and it comes about. Someone is facilitating this. There are groups that are facilitating this. Even when people showed up, there are groups that have orchestrated and facilitated this. Come on now. How did it get scheduled to be at the same time across the nation? Y'all not making any sense. That's not a bunch of random people just chatting off the internet. Now, I know a lot of people don't want to take accountability, and that's a whole nother conversation. But it was organized and funded. Anybody with any level of common sense will understand that. Now, people that don't want to take accountability refuse to admit that it was organized and funded. So again, who organized it? Who funded it? What did they stand to gain and aim, and where do they think that things are today? But we're going to take a look at this, why everybody talks about it.
Some of the problems, like one Democrat saying her generation does not go out and vote in local elections, while an independent voter identified herself as pretty out of touch when it comes to the midterms, adding she doesn't remember learning much about them. Joining us now to discuss, Fox News contributor Mary Catherine Ham. Hey, MK, good to see you.
Hey, how's it going?
So this is a problem when it comes to the local election. But sure, we're seeing it differently in New York City, a much more progressive state. But in those swing states, this could be a huge problem for Democrats, right?
Well, I think the first question is when you look at the No Kings rally, it looks like it was fairly successful. There's a lot of people there. Does it look like a young rally? Does it look like a young rally to anyone? So those young voters, I don't think you're reaching with this particular message. And it's interesting because if you look at it as an analog to the Tea Party, right? The Tea Party did get a lot of people involved, but it specifically got a lot of people involved in those local elections, in taking over their areas of voting and being more volunteers in that area. And I'm not sure that that's translating with No Kings. Also, notably with the Tea Party, what did the Tea Party do first? It started knocking off people in primary elections, which I think is probably what's going to happen with Democrats, where they're going to lift up a bunch of very probably too progressive candidates in some areas of the country to win a general election and may succeed in these primaries. So in the short term, we'll see what kind of damage or success No Kings can do.
It's such a good point because as I was looking, not just in New York, but all the other cities where the protests were happening, this seemed like a demographic that the Democrats already have. One of the demographics that they're struggling with, I'm not sure this comment from AOC is helpful. Let's watch it.
When they talk about Republicans and their success online, they have been successful because they have also been very clear, especially digitally, about what they believe. And they are able to radicalize and target and exploit a generation of young boys, in particular, away from healthy masculinity and into an insecure masculinity that requires the domination of others.
I mean,
let me specify this again, okay? I don't think people are paying attention. We have a Dramati's Light says there were all ages at the protest. I didn't say that there weren't all ages at the protest. What I've been saying like a broken record is that the predominant age group were seniors. They were older individuals. This wasn't a predominant protest of younger individuals. It was predominantly older. When you look at the footage, when you see the people were there, again, I'm not trying to say, oh, I showed up at a particular city and maybe you were around a group of younger individuals. Okay, well, congratulations. You happen to be the group of younger individuals that you were around. When I said all locations across the nation, the predominant age group were seniors. So again, you got to look at what is the goal of seniors? What is the mindset? What do they want to achieve? Why are they the predominant group and not the younger individuals, the predominant group? You got to think about that, right? These are just questions that I'm bringing up. You got to look at the end game of that. But anyhow, let's continue with the message.
You think they're going to come and support you now after that?
Yeah, no, here's the thing. Here's the thing Democrats did that really helped Republicans is they spent 20 years calling men toxic. And that's what men heard. And then young men in particular had every milestone taken from them during the COVID era. And then they were told by Democrats that they were toxic for having any complaints about it. And those guys were like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like you guys like us. And so they went the other direction. Now
that was a big issue. That's a whole nother conversation about masculinity as far as men and upholding their masculinity. We were punished for that. You saw the shift in TV commercials, the shift in media, the shift everywhere where they wanted to make a masculine man soft, to quiet him down, to not have him as crude. Again, you saw the shift. We all saw the shift. That's a real thing that took place. So it's like you can't be the way that a man's supposed to be. And it's not about perfection is what I'm saying here. I'm not talking about being perfect. I'm talking about just being the way that we are. A man is raw. A man is edgy. A man is like straight to the point. Might be blunt. Might be this. Might be that. But that's what makes a man a man. And we watched a lot of that shift. Now, when a lot of that shift, you could think about the Democratic Party. I kind of said it. Who actually was supporting that shift. And there was a lot of people and a lot of women. It's like, yay, we want our men to be emasculated. We don't want them to say this. They can't do this. They can't be like this. They can't act like that. So it created a lot of frustration and it created a lot of attack. It's a deeper conversation than this, but this is a real thing that did take place. Anyway, let's go.
There are pockets of the internet, of course, that do turn into very toxic masculinity. That can be a real thing. But the fact that the Democrats failed with this demographic by telling them they don't like them is not actually Republicans' fault. They just ended up benefiting from it by saying, hey, you know what we like? The UFC and dudes.
So true. Meanwhile, here in New York City, it looks like Mamdani is going to be the next mayor of New York. A lot of pushback, though, from a lot of people in the community over this photo with Siraj Wahhaj. This is what he had to say. I had the pleasure of meeting with Imam Siraj Wahhaj, one of the nation's foremost Muslim leaders and a pillar of the Bed-Stuy community for nearly a half a century. He's a radical. This amount, and it's been known for a while. Some politicians have tried to avoid him in any photos, but not Mamdani.
Yeah, you should probably avoid a terror apologist in the city of New York, a guy who was associated with the Blind Sheikh. That should be a guy you should avoid, but I don't think that Mamdani is interested in avoiding him because he's wooing the pocket of voters that might be sort of radicalized and terror apologists themselves that this guy represents. And I do have to say, part of Mamdani's success comes from, again, and you'll see a pattern here, the Democrat Party's failure in lifting anyone up who's better than Andrew Cuomo, right? And they also haven't lifted up anyone who's doing the oppo research that they should be doing on this guy who has a wealth of disqualifying positions and associations, this one probably included.
He responded to this photo and the pushback by saying this, Mamdani. The same Imam met with Mayor Bloomberg, met with Mayor de Blasio, campaigned alongside Eric Adams. And the only time it became an issue on national attention was when I met with him. That's because of the fact of my faith and because I am on the precipice of winning this election. How do you feel about that?
Well, he's also the only one in those. He's also the only one in those three who can't condemn, globalize the Intifada, and couldn't say the other day on Martha's show that he wanted Hamas disarmed. So, like, there's a slight difference there, and I would argue that Republicans probably had issues with it in the past as well.
That's exactly right. Here's the president reacting.
All right, here we go.
Mamdani's photo with the 93 World Trade Center bombing.
Yeah, no, it's a shame. Look, the Mamdani thing is it's a disaster waiting to happen. We can't have a communist in charge of a great, supposedly free enterprise, kind of a representative city. So I think if you have a communist mayor, I think it's going to be very tough for him and for the city.
I mean, at its core, though, it should make people very uncomfortable that you have radical Islamists that are gearing up behind it. I mean, his father's past words in his book talking about suicide bombers. You know, him saying globalize the Intifada, being in the protests, leading some of them that are, you know, holding hostage students at Columbia University. It's not just one element, it's all of it together, right, MK?
Right. If he were denouncing very clearly all of that stuff and saying, this is my faith, this is what I believe, and also all these things are very bad, sure. But he's like, also all these things are cool. And
see, listen, man. Y'all. We in trouble, man. New York, man. Listen, man. New York is in trouble, man. I'm sorry. This is not gonna go over well for New York. This is not gonna go over like. Oh man, this is not. Listen, y'all. This is not good, man. I'm gonna have to come back to this one. As a matter of fact, let me switch gears real quick because like this is just bad. Like it's bad. But anyway, let me switch gears. I may come back and do a live on that one specifically. I want to just go ahead and go to this. Let's look at the White House firing back at the No Kings protests.
All right, everybody. Lydia, I'll go to you first. You know, it is kind of all about the numbers when it comes to midterms. Without a polarizing figure at the top in a presidential election, when you go into midterms, it comes to who's retiring, what seats are open, what seats have been left open from appointments, stuff like that. So it's not always about which party is doing the best as much as where you are and who's running in that area. But, you know, like this Cook political report says, Democrats still have a lean towards the advantage even in that scenario.
Yeah, you know, I think just stepping back and kind of looking big picture at what the Democrats are up against, the Biden administration really left them in what I call is a pickle. They've got a leadership problem and they've got an issues problem. What type of issues can the Democrats really celebrate at this point that would lead them to argue that they should be put into power now? They left the economy in shambles. They left us with an open border. They left us with a national security issue. For families across the country, they're still trying to figure out how can they recover the losses in education that they suffered during COVID. Thank goodness that there are more options and more homeschooling options and charter school options. But it's going to take a long time to recover that, as we see from the latest national test results. When it comes to the various leadership, that's another big issue that we can talk more about. There is no...
Yeah, listen, as far as the left goes, I know, listen, the No Kings protest was like anti-Trump, right? It was anti-Trump rhetoric, anti-Trump laws. When you look at the left, though, who is leading the left? There's nobody that's leading the left. No one wants to actually step up and take that leadership. You know why? Because if they step up and say, hey, I'm going to be the leader of the left, guess what's going to happen? They're going to catch all the heat that Trump is catching. And now they're not willing to do that. So they're actually playing games because they're not willing to step up and take the leadership. Someone has to come out of the Democratic Party. If they claim that the Republican Party is screwing everything up, they claim Trump is screwing everything up with this No Kings protest, then who is supposed to be the so-called leader of the left? I'm just saying, nobody's stepping up to do it. We have potential options. Sometimes people are asked here and there, and they kind of, they dance around giving an actual response.
Clear leader of the Democrat Party. We just saw this on leader of the Democrat. Talk more about. There is no clear leader of the Democrat Party. We just saw this on full display in a recent town hall on another network when AOC was point blank asked whether she was going to primary Chuck Schumer, and she didn't even want to answer the question because that would just erupt into just full on, civil war on the Democrat side.
See, same thing. It's like no one wants to answer that question. And this is what I'm talking about. Where is this No Kings protest actually getting people? You got all these people coming together saying, screw Trump, forget this. And it's like you're getting all these people here, but who are those people actually going to get behind? You see what I'm saying? Without a clear leader, listen, y'all, no matter what you do, without a clear leader, you're going to fall apart. When you look at sports, right? You have a captain. You have a quarterback. You've got somebody that's calling the shots. You even got a coach, for crying out loud. When you look at the military, you got generals. You got people that lead. When you look at your office, when you go to work, when you look at your household, and when we look at our Heavenly Father who art in heaven, for those of you that believe in God, I believe in God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We have a hierarchy. We have a leadership, a way that we have to follow. So it's like with this No Kings protest, like, where are we going with this? Like, who's really orchestrating this? And this is what's troubling when you're trying to provide a difference of opinion and a different direction. And you say, hey, this is wrong. Trump is wrong. Trump rhetoric wrong. The Republicans are wrong. The right is wrong. Conservatives wrong. Charlie Kirk's wrong. Everything's wrong. But then you have no actual organization and leadership when it comes from the left. It's like a bunch of voices saying this, saying that. And it's like it's a lot of confusion over there. I'm just saying, somebody got to step up. Someone has to step up if they're willing to, quote unquote, get in the ring and go against Trump and be the leader of the left. I'm just saying. Come on now. Anyway, let's go.
David, one thing I saw that happened this week is Caroline Leavitt came out a little bit guns a-blazing about what the Democrat Party may stand for and who their constituents may be. She got a lot of heat for this, and I guess I understand why, but I also know exactly what she was saying because this is what they've shown. Let's take a listen.
The Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals.
Lydia said, talk about the policies. I mean, those are the policies they've shown.
Yeah, I mean, and to take a point from Lydia and add a little of a twist on this, the leadership of the Democrat Party is ideology. They're bound to all of these radical ideologies that are out there, trans ideology. They're pro-illegal alien. They're pro-Hamas. That's a horrible ideology. You talk about real, the kind of people that are going around executing, if it's the reporting bears out, probably dozens of people since the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. So they're bound to supporting people who are for that in some way or claiming that there's a lie about America. In other words, the economy's not doing better. Yes, things are tough at times, and that Americans should only be the ones getting benefits instead of illegal aliens on Medicaid. So the Democrats are bound to an ideology that is leftism when you put that all under one umbrella. And out of that, we can't afford that. As a country, we can't afford it. As communities, we can't afford it.
Doctor, when the Democrat Party looks at the issues they think they can champion, I hate to pigeonhole you in this, but your name does start with doctor. They think health care is at the top of the list. They really feel like that's an issue they can own because of the big, beautiful bill. They say that's why they're continuing to keep the government closed. What do you say?
Well, isn't it really interesting that the governments right now are saying that this is a healthcare crisis that was created by the GOP? This is the Republicans' crisis, and they're blaming the shutdown right now on Republicans. But the reality is the state where we're at in healthcare all came under Democratic rule, Democratic policies, which was wildly dependent on the rising entitlement costs, large subsidy programs, and the fact that it is vulnerable because of these expiring subsidies. These are all Democratic put forth policies. The reason they're where they are right now is because of things that they have done, and they're wanting a bailout from the Republicans. The Republicans did not sign on to this health care crisis. They did not create it, and it is not their role to bail it out. Democrats need to come to the table and see what they have put forth is failing. It is not and has never been the Affordable Care Act. It is the Unaffordable Care Act, and the only people who should be focusing really on repealing and replace the ACA right now are Democrats, because this is their mess.
Yeah, and on top of that, the appropriations process is actually working, and Democrats are ignoring it. I think it was Thune that offered them a health care vote and said, hey, if you want to have a vote on health care, we can do that. All right, meanwhile,
I mean, that is a point. And I know a lot of people on the left going to be pissed off with me saying this, but it's true. It's like if there was an offer with the health care vote. See, this is what I want people to understand, okay? You got a lot of rhetoric coming out of the left saying, screw Trump, no King's protest, we're against Trump, we're against what he's trying to do, we tired of all of this. And then it's like it was an offer to take a look at healthcare, to vote on healthcare, and they refused to even entertain the offer. So it's like, okay, if an offer is put out there and somebody's even refusing entertaining the offer, what is it doing for those of you that support the left and they're refusing to actually sit down? And there's individuals that's depending on the government being reopened. They're depending on benefits. I got to do a whole stream on the SNAP benefits. The SNAP benefits may be no more, may be no more food stamps starting November, which is roughly 2 weeks or so from now. So, this is a real scenario that we're facing. And it's like if somebody's trying to say, hey, let's sit down and talk about it, but then they don't want to sit down and talk about it, it's like you got to look at who's holding who's hostage. I mean, it's kind of crazy. The whole situation is crazy to begin with, but it's getting us to actually pay attention and to be less dependent on the government. You see, I'm going to say something that's going to probably upset some people, but this was a conversation that was brought up. Perhaps maybe in the past when a lot of the Republicans wanted to privatize a lot of aspects of the government. A lot of aspects would still be functioning right now and would not actually be funded under the government. It would be privately funded. So that would mean that if the government shut down, a lot of our services wouldn't have been impacted. But when it comes to the left, they believe the government, they need to get in here and vote on this and make sure the government is managing everything we got under the sun. And so, we're constantly wrestling against that. Again, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. I mean, some of y'all do, but we wrestle against principalities, wicked rulers in high places. So it's like, it's this constant going back and forth. And you got to think, well, for everybody that's on the left, you got to stop and think, does the left really actually care about opening the government? Do they care about getting you paid? Do they care about the resources that you need with having the government open? Or do they care about making it look like that's what they care about, but they're really only after their own agenda? You know, we got to really stop and think about this. We got to look at it. And listen, this conversation is way more deep and way more complicated than what I'm talking about. It's multi-layers to this, right? It's multi-layers to this. But I'm just kind of bringing up these questions. One of the things that I do here at Brainwaves Advice Topics LLC, I make people think. My name is Brainwaves. I get you to think. I make people think about scenarios. Maybe you didn't consider that. Maybe you didn't think about that. That's what we do here. We get people to think and for us to figure things out. Another thing where we are right now with the government being shut down, this is putting people in a position. And I talked about this back when we had COVID. But those of you that have been following me, you understand this. Those of you that are just here for the first time, you're like, okay, what are you talking about? Back when COVID happened, it was a chance where God had the whole world where we had to actually make changes in our lives. We had to pay attention. There's things we had to do. We had to re-examine our relationships, re-examine how we do business, re-examine what's important, how we function, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some of us did that, but the majority of us did not. We held our breath until the world opened back up. And then when the world opened back up, we said, phew, and we just went back to how things were. Now, some of us are facing this situation once again with the government shut down, as long as it is. And it's a chance for us to actually revisit and reevaluate where we need to be, what's important in our lives. Some of you have goals. Some of you have things that you should be working on, or perhaps could have started, could have done it. Some of you are meant to be entrepreneurs yourself. Some of you got multi-million-dollar ideas that you just didn't decide to implement on. Maybe now's the time to implement those multi-million-dollar ideas that you have. You got people that tell you, hey, this and this and that, because we become too dependent on the government. And that is the argument that when you look to the left, they say we need to be fully dependent on the government. But when you look at the right argues, hey, less dependent on the government. I want less dependent on the government. So, I mean, this conversation is far deeper than what I'm saying, but we are in this situation together, and we got to reevaluate where we are now and make moves, because regardless of who's the president, you still got to make moves in your household. You got to make moves with your businesses, regardless of who's president, regardless of who's in charge, regardless of what party. You still have to make the moves. You have to be innovative. You have to grow. We have to evolve. We have to do things. So, I mean, this conversation, again, is far deeper than what I'm saying. But I'm just bringing these conversations and topics up for you all to consider. Let's go.
Democrats continue to eat their own. If Nancy Pelosi decides to run for re-election, well, she might be in trouble. California's state senator, Scott Weiner, is seen as her biggest challenger. He's made a career out of pushing dangerous far-left woke policies, including protections for registered sex offenders. Wow. And placing biological men in women's prisons. Another wow. And the 85-year-old appears to be losing her touch, gripping a staffer for support. She snapped at a reporter when asked a simple question. Let's take a look.
Now, watch this. This is Nancy Pelosi. And, you know, back in her time, back in her prime, Nancy Pelosi was a beast. You know what I'm saying? Back in her time, back in her prime. Right? But, you know, as far as the Speaker of the House and all of that, but where we are now, it's a total different time. So I want the left, I want all the people that are, you know, liberal left supporters, I want to see what their particular reaction is going to be to this.
Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard.
January 6th.
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
Refuse the National Guard on January 6th.
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
David, I'm going to go to you on this because that look that I don't know who that reporter is. That look she gave to camera there at the end became kind of a viral meme over the weekend or over the week. And it's this idea that, I mean, her response is to turn around and say, shut up. I mean, like, you know, bring it down to a preschool.
Let me break something down. Like, listen, you got people that's in the chat saying she didn't refuse the National Guard. Okay, let's go with that scenario. Let's say she didn't refuse the National Guard. Let's actually run with what she said. Look at what she said. She said, shut up. She said, shut up. Many people on the left criticize Trump, criticize Republicans for the way that they speak. Everybody on the left is bashing Trump all day, every day. That's the whole point of the No Kings protest, right? To bash Trump, to bash Trumpisms. And here we have Nancy Pelosi, right? Hardcore left supporter, right? She told them to shut up and pointed. Do you think that was appropriate? Because two wrongs don't make a right. You can't sit here and say, oh, well, it's appropriate for her to do it, but then bash when people like Trump or a Republican does it. I mean, if we're gonna bash people for doing it, we need to bash everybody. I mean, we gotta be fair now. Come on now. Come on now. But anyway, let's go. Let's back it up just a pinch.
Meme over the weekend or over the week. And it's this idea that, I mean, her response is to turn around and say, shut up. I mean, like, you know, bring it down to a preschool or a playground level, right?
And the mom finger. She put her finger in her face. Like, who does that?
First of all, this is the queen of the Democrat Party during the No Kings weekend telling you when to shut up. Get it right. Nancy Pelosi's always been the power player, controls the money. Now she's watching it slip away and she wants to be the queen until she's out of office and maybe even then. This is not atypical for Nancy Pelosi. We typically don't see this in the media, but over the years, she has a history of snapping at reporters, of snapping at staffers. This has been well documented. There's lots of video out there, and now we're seeing it on full display. But again, this is the queen of the Democrat Party on No Kings weekend. Remember that.
You know, and I want to bring up, if she has a history of snapping at reporters and etc., and like, I want to know where the criticism, like, I want to know where the non-biased criticism is. Because, like I said, it's funny how people criticize one side, but they don't criticize when the other side is doing it. Right? That's what's crazy. You got people that don't criticize the left. Oh, when the left do it, when they say that, oh, it's fine, it's justified, nothing's wrong. Then when the right does it, oh, it's the end of the world. They're all this and this and that. I'm just saying, we're talking about the No Kings protest, and there's a lot of people here that are in support of the No Kings protest. So we're having that conversation. If you're going to say it's wrong, I want to see some comments in the chat saying that Nancy Pelosi shouldn't have said shut up and pointing her finger. I'm just saying. Otherwise, I don't want to hear any comments about how, well, Trump said this and said that. Come on, it's clear that you're showing your bias.
Doctor, the problem here is if it's not Nancy Pelosi, who I think most people, the main credit she gets is that she got everyone to fall in line.
Yep.
Even the AOCs when she had the gavel. But if it's not her, it's Hakeem Jeffries, and he does not look like someone that can wrangle the troops at all.
No, I actually think Nancy Pelosi made a good speaker in her time. I think
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi was a beast in her time. Nancy Pelosi, she held it down. She did the thing. She was great. She was awesome in her time. You see what I'm saying? When she had her time, she was awesome. And this is, again, this is an issue that has plagued the left. Who's supposed to be the leader? There's a lot of people running around on the left saying, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that. But there's no clear leader. So where's the organization? That's what's going on. We got to find clear organization on the left, and right now we don't see it. Anyway,
It is time for her to retire. I think physically she's not doing well, and maybe it is time for a new generation. But I don't know if you guys read that Axios report that came out about Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, this is just an overarching theme talking about the leadership in the Democratic Party. It was quite damning for him. Axios reached out to the congressional Democrats who are up for re-election. 113 responded. Less than 20% said that they.
I want to answer this question. What's up, Deanna? If this is for me, my leader is my Father who art in heaven, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Father of Jesus Christ. That's my leader. You understand? The biblical leader, the Bible, the text, that's my leader. If that's directed towards me, that's my leader. I want to know who your leader is, Deanna. Let's go.
Would vote for him when it comes to being speaker. And, when we're actually looking at who trusts Congress right now, less than 12% of America thinks that Congress is doing a really good job. 2/3 of Americans don't support the shutdown. So when it comes to Congress right now, no one is supporting them. And the Democrats do not have a message. Kind of what Lydia was saying earlier was there is no message going forward. They're continuing to run on anti-Trump rhetoric, and they are going to continue to lose over and over again.
And I agree. The anti-Trump rhetoric is not sustainable. Okay. If the left stands to gain any ground, it can't just be anti-Trump. There has to be some actual fundamentals that they're running on that's not anti-Trump, right? And this is what's hurting the left. It is what it is. There's no actual leader that says, hey, I am the leader of the left. I am the leader of the Democratic Party. You got a lot of people talking, a lot of faces, but no actual leader. There is not one person right now that the Democratic Party has said, yes, we're behind this person. We support him. We support her. This is the leader of our party. This person's going to take us into this direction. There is no clear leader at this time. I mean, unless somebody's emerging as I'm live streaming right now, there is no clear leader. There's not. So where is this going to go? And the whole anti-Trump. This is why we're asking with the No Kings rally. Like, where's this getting them? Like, seriously, like, what is, okay, the government's still shut down. There is no pressure on any political party to move the quote unquote goalpost forward to opening the government, right? There hasn't been any changes, and I know it just took place, but generally when people protest like that, it's to put pressure to bring about some type of change. We're seeing people exercise their political rights, their amendment rights, but where is the actual changes that has taken place as of that? And this is the question that I'm asking. Like, where has these No King protests gotten us? It's gotten a lot of people mad. It's gotten some people happy. It's gotten a lot of people out on the streets. It's got a lot of people speaking on social media, et cetera, et cetera. But where has this gotten us? Has this No Kings protest, this is what I want to ask, has this No Kings protest actually achieved the objective of the left? It might have started something. It might have sparked something. But this is the question we're asking. Where has this gotten them? Right? I'm just saying. I'm just asking questions here. And it's like people are upset with me for asking questions, right? All I'm doing is asking questions. So anyway, let's continue.
These younger generations coming up, they're going more extreme, more far left, and that is taking them so much far from center that it's going to take a while to get back to middle, and they're just a mess right now.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here.
All right, so wait, I done clicked on something. I didn't mean to do that. So, like, these are real tough questions. I mean, ultimately, first and foremost, like I said, I support the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the biblical God. So, I'm all about Christ. I'm all about that. That is my fundamentals. That is my leader. You know what I'm saying? That's who I follow. I know some of y'all watching here, y'all don't believe in the Bible. Y'all don't follow, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Maybe you follow some other God. Maybe you're an atheist. Maybe you're this and this and that. All I can do is tell you where I stand and who I follow. I just want people to realize and ask the question on either side. We got to look at where we are individually and figure out how we need to get into a space and put ourselves in a place where we're good. Right? Either way, this is what we got to look at. We got to ask the tough question. Right? I want to say something. GW says 7 million say different. So with the 7 million people that came out with the No Kings protest, did those 7 million raise $7 million? No, they did not. If 7 million people participated in the No Kings protest, all they had to do is put in $1. How come $7 million wasn't raised or more wasn't raised to go towards things? Now, I'm not saying that money wasn't raised, outside of that. I'm not saying it wasn't somehow because of the organization, whoever put this through. Some people saying George Soros and all of that. I'm not saying that they didn't make any money, but I'm talking about people like 7 million. How come it wasn't $7 million raised to go help people that have been laid off or they're no longer receiving income from the government shutdown, for example? How come that $7 million wasn't raised and they didn't go take care of so-called healthcare concerns? I'm just bringing up questions here, right? Because this is what people are saying. If 7 million people participated in the No Kings protest, couldn't they have raised money? Couldn't they have done this? Couldn't they have done that? I mean, I'm just saying. Like, these are questions we got to ask. Right? So, there's money. Somebody made money off of this. Somebody gained something off of this. Someone is benefiting from this. But the question that we got to ask is, are we the people benefiting from this No Kings protest? That's what y'all got to stop and think. Where has this gotten us? Are we the people benefiting from this No Kings protest? So I'm just saying, with this being said, I got a lot more that I have to talk about. And I'm going to speak to those particular subjects in a second. Now, as for me addressing the chat, listen, y'all, I had over 1,500 people in the chat. I honestly cannot address everybody in the chat. So for people saying you're not looking at the chat, y'all having conversations with me, super chat me. How about that? If you want me to see your particular questions, that is why we have a super chat option. I got hundreds of people in the building right now. So there's no way that I'm going to see all of the comments, run a show, etc., etc. Right? Y'all got to understand this, man. These are basics. These are pure basics. See, someone that knows how to follow instructions. Shout out to Marissa Eldritz, right? She actually super chatted me and I see her comment and her comment goes right on the screen. It reads, "It's hypocrisy to chant no kings after the left just put Kamala in the election without any votes." Shaking my head. Ooh. Yo. That's crazy. That's crazy. Yo. Shout out to Zombie Killer as well for the support. Zombie Killer is just putting in the support. I appreciate you. Right? There's a lot going on. I want to bring up this point that Jack says. We got Jack Mangini says they're lying. The very fact that these fools could protest proves there's no king. I mean, that actually is a point. Because if there actually was a king, we wouldn't have the right to protest. A king wouldn't even allow people to protest. A king would silence any protests. So, I mean, that actually is a point. Maybe a different word could be used for President Trump. But king, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. This is crazy. But hey, I got more that I want to go live and talk to y'all about. So shout out to everybody that came in the building. Shout out to all the new people. I appreciate y'all. I ask that you double tap the screen. Kindly subscribe if you haven't done so already. These are tough subjects. These are tough conversations. There's going to be people that don't like what I have to say, don't like what those of you in the chat have to say. And there's going to be people that do like what I have to say and do like what those of you in the chat have to say. I mean, this is what it is, but we got to have the tough conversations. We got to talk about it. We got to address it. We got to look at it, and we got to bring it up. Again, the question that we're asking on this particular stream is, where did the No Kings protest get them? Meaning those that participated, those that supported it, et cetera, et cetera. Where did it get them? That's what we're asking. So with that being said, I'm going to get out of here. I got another live stream coming up shortly. I'm going to do. Again, appreciate those of you that did subscribe. Those of you that did double tap the screen. I appreciate all of y'all. I'm going to be going live shortly with a whole nother subject. So with that being said, I'll catch y'all in a few minutes, right? Let me go ahead and do this. Hold on real quick. How is this for blabbing? How is this for begging for money, right? How is this for blabbering for money? Congratulations, Tone73Z28. You have got your Camaro, you and your Chevy, your Chevy Camaro have been put on the block list. Congratulations. Congratulations. Since you think that I'm blabbering for money. It's funny, man. It's amazing how people are. But hey, with that being said, y'all, I'm going to go live in a few minutes. I'm going to go handle something real quick, and I'm going to be back on here with another subject. But those of you that are here, those of you that get it, man, I appreciate y'all. And again, make sure y'all subscribe, double tap the screen. I look forward to your participation. I look forward to hearing your comments. I look forward to seeing all of y'all in a few minutes. Come on now. So with that being said, I'll catch y'all then. Peace and blessings to those of you that are here, those of you that are able to hear me say that, those of you that are watching the replay. I'll see those of you that show up in a few minutes. With that being said, I'll catch y'all then. Peace and blessings. I'm out.